Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Eyesight Drone. I am Jeff Stanfield with the world-famous Andy Shaver, and with us online today, you ready for this, Andy?
Give her, Jeff. Give her. You
From
should
Clovis,
have it.
New Mexico, Mr. Collin Mikulencak. Did I get it right?
You got it.
Yes, sir, you did.
No,
Sounded good.
it doesn't. It's not spelled anything like how it's pronounced, Mikulencak. That is not a name from Sweden or anything. Where's that from? Are you Russian?
No, sir. I guess the Czech Republic.
Czech. Okay, it's a
former Czechoslovakia. Yes, sir.
So the Eastern Bloc country. That's pretty close.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
How the hell did your ancestors pick Clovis, New Mexico?
So I'm actually from South Texas, south of Houston on the coast.
Okay.
Lake Jackson to be specific,
Yep.
but I'm actually stationed at Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, so that's why I'm out here. I'm active duty Air Force.
Can you tell us what you do in the Air Force, or is it top secret?
No, not top secret. I'm an aircraft mechanic.
Okay. My city manager here in Haskell, his son-in-law, in Knox City, he's from Haskell. His son-in-law is the head military guy there, the police guy there at Cannon.
Security forces?
Yep. I don't know what exactly he does either, but
He's an MP.
Got it.
he's ahead of them.
Now MPs
yeah.
they're not popular, right?
So Air Force, they're actually called security forces. I don't know. I mean, if you don't really, do anything wrong, you don't have to worry about it. I've never ever had a bad experience with security forces, so can't say anything bad about those guys.
Before my brother was going into the Army, I was talking to somebody that was in the Army, and they were like, "Listen, whatever he does, make sure he does not become an MP, because they're just like the lowest. Everybody hates them. Nobody on base likes the MP. So I didn't know if it was like that where you are."
No, I mean, not in my experience, but I guess if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to run into some trouble. So.
I think Andy hangs out with some lowlifes that we don't know about, and his problem is that he's just hanging out with people that just don't like the law. There are a lot of disrespectful people out there.
You want me to tell you who said that? Like an upstanding fucking citizen.
Who?
I'm not going to say it
Well,
on
you
air.
said you want me to tell you who, and so give me his
ugly.
initials.
Huh?
Give me his initials.
I'll mute us real quick.
You can unmute me now. She's been known to do some sketchy stuff.
Oh,
so
give me a break.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Oh, but at her time she was. When she told you this, she was.
No.
And she's not in the Army anyway. She's in the Air Force.
See there? That's just how big a dicks MPs are. It's crossed the branches.
I don't think so.
Maybe. So there's active duty security forces, and then they actually contract out. I guess they're part of Department of Defense. I'm not quite sure, but they wear a different uniform, and they're civilian contractors. And I've had an issue with them. They pulled me over for not wearing a seatbelt, and the passenger wasn't wearing a seatbelt either, and they threatened to suspend my license for 30 days on base.
See,
so
I'm not too far off. When you get the call that you're going to Clovis, New Mexico, are you just like, oh motherfucker?
So yes and no. So my wife's family is from New Mexico, up in Farmington, and I've spent years hunting and fishing in New Mexico, so I was relatively familiar with it. And when I was in training, my assignment was a few weeks late, so I'd go in there every Tuesday when the assignments drop. And I'm like, okay, where am I going? Come back next week. And I really wanted to go to Albuquerque at Kirtland. And so I go in there, like, we finally have your assignment. I'm like, okay, where am I going? They're like, New Mexico. I'm like,
got it.
Sweet. I'm going to Kirtland. That's where I wanted to be. Excellent. I'm like, oh, Kirtland. They're like, no. And they look at their screen and they're like, Cannon. I'm like, oh my God. And so it's a funny story. So back up about 3 years, my dad and I are going elk hunting up north of Albuquerque, and we're driving through Cannon, and we're driving through past base housing. And I'm going, God, can you imagine living out here? I hadn't even thought about joining the Air Force. I was still in college, nothing. And then fast forward, should have kept my mouth shut. But it's been
that happened to me in Knox City. The first time I drove through Knox City, I was meeting some clients about 4:30 in the morning at Allsup's, and a cold front had hit. And Tony had set up this time for me to meet him, and I knew where the field was, but I'd come in from Weinert. And Tony's like, you meet him at Allsup's at Knox City at 4:30 in the morning. I said, okay. So I'm driving through town. I'm about 15 minutes early, and I thought I had time to stop and grab me a burrito and something to drink. And the wind's blowing out of the north, and every street on the north end of town in Knox City is a dirt road. So when you're coming through, that north wind would blow that dirt across. And I'm driving down the road, and I thought, who in the fuck would want to live in Knox City, Texas? Then I get to Allsup's and get my shit, and there's a freaking cow walking down Main Street. And I thought, what a bunch of country fucks these people are. And then I was mayor for 10 years in Knox City. So it's really weird how that ends up happening.
No cows down Main Street during your
I got rid of all that shit. So you're in Clovis, New Mexico. Now, when I think of Clovis, New Mexico, and I've been through Clovis many times going to Albuquerque and going to West, there ain't a whole lot of water around there for the average person.
No. Well, on dry years, there's not. On the wet year, looks like we're going to be having one this year. The playas will fill up. And so every farm, every ranch has all these playa lakes.
In New Mexico.
They can get full and they get, we hunt one that can be upwards of, 40, 50 acres. So, you're looking at like ranging from like a little puddle in the ground to a pretty good sized lake. It just depends on the year.
So you do have playas in New Mexico.
Oh, absolutely.
I did not know that. It makes sense because right across the border is some of the best hunting in the world is between Lubbock and West. I mean, from Lubbock to where y'all are at is some of the best waterfowl hunting in the world.
Exactly. So we're kind of on like the furthest west side of like the playas end about, if you go west of town, there are no playas. So they're all on the north and east side of town. And you run up that Texas border, you'll find plenty of playa lakes.
Do you have any hunting on the Air Force Base there?
No, a lot of bases do have a program. I used to bow hunt at Camp Bullis in San Antonio, but no program on the main base. But I think this year they are starting a pronghorn management program out on the bombing range. So,
how big is that Air Force Base?
You mean in terms of like personnel or land
like
size?
100,000 acres, 50,000 acres. Is it a big base?
No, it's a relatively small base.
Okay, that's what I didn't know. I've had some pig hunters from there, and those guys all run drones because that's where they run all the drones in the Middle East is out of Cannon, right?
Oh yeah, the MQ-9s. Yeah, they have So we have AC-130, so the gunships. We have MC-130Js, which is what I work on, and that's infill exfil aircraft. And then we have CB-22s, which is the kind of half plane, half helicopter type deal, and then the drones and the U-28s, which is just a real small single engine plane.
Have you got to fly? Have you got to ride in the gunship yet?
No, never ridden on a gunship. It's not much of a passenger vehicle.
I've always wanted to. I think that'd be badass to sit in one of them and get to shoot those guns. I'm assuming those guns are probably all ran off of computers now, or is there some?
Right.
There's nobody just manually pulling the plug on it like during World War II.
So you have gunners and I'm not too familiar, I kind of have a general idea because I hunt with a guy that's a gunner. They load the weapons, and they'll do maintenance on the weapons, but there is it's called a combat station officer, and they actually pull the trigger per se. So.
What are those shooting 50 caliber or bigger?
Oh, much bigger. So they used to have 105 millimeter howitzers and 20 millimeter Gatling guns, but I'm not too familiar with the ACs.
Okay,
I'm almost positive they still shoot 20 millimeters, but not through a Gatling gun.
Okay, I'm definitely don't know shit about any of this stuff, but was a 20 millimeter? How big is the shell? Is it the size of a Yeti mug or bigger than that?
Which Yeti mug?
Yeah.
One of these right here, a tumbler.
One of those?
Yeah. I'd say but it's little, maybe as thin as the bottom part.
Okay, now this is the dumb question. Them fuckers are shooting off 100 rounds a minute or whatever they shoot off. Are the actual shell casings staying in the plane, or are they kicking them out the fucking window?
No dropped objects. They kick them back into the plane.
I wondered about that. Imagine just driving down the road, them fuckers come flying at you.
Hey, so I read something interesting. So the Army belt is 27 feet long. And that is where the expression, the whole 9 yards, came from.
I didn't know that, but that is interesting.
You're welcome, Jeff.
Well, thank you for that. So
your little tidbit of worthless knowledge.
So you're from, go ahead.
Did you graduate college before you joined the Air Force?
Yes, sir. I went to Sam Houston State in Huntsville, Texas.
So what made you go from college graduate to Air Force?
I had got done with college. Truthfully, I wasn't a great student. Kind of fucked off. Had fun in my fraternity.
Well, I know how that goes.
Though.
Yeah, but I don't know. Just kind of wanted to go do something exciting, and then just went and joined the Air Force. I guess I didn't really have any real big reason. I just kind of have a family history of military service. So I wanted to continue that.
So are you a career guy going to do it for 20 years?
Oh, no, sir. I'll be getting out in 2.5 years.
So how long are you staying in for?
Sir?
Are you going to be in there for 4 years total?
6 years.
6
total.
years. That's what my youngest son, he's got a 6-year commitment. I said, are you going to re-up again? No, sir.
No, sir.
His was no, same thing. So,
Yeah.
I forgot. So you grew up in Lake Jackson, Texas, which
Yes.
is basically Houston, Texas almost, correct?
So
That's an
it's 45 minutes south of Houston on 288. So we're about 10 miles from the coast.
So it's humid and nasty and mosquito-driven and wet and miserable, and if God was going to give it an enema in Texas, he would give it in Houston, Texas, I've always said.
Yes, sir.
So now you live in Clovis, New Mexico, which I think the Texas Panhandle is a pretty cool place. There's not,
Oh, I love
there's
it,
not a
man.
lot of trees, but there's no humidity, and on a wet year, the waterfowl hunting is great. Are you shooting sandhill cranes in New Mexico, or mostly ducks and geese?
Yeah, mostly ducks and geese. So we'll get a few sandhills, but it's just kind of a luck of the draw. We definitely don't target them. I have some buddies that run an outfit over in Lubbock, and we kill a lot of cranes with them. But here in New Mexico, we don't.
Who do you hunt with
We
in
don't.
Lubbock?
I guide for Dust Devil Outfitters.
Okay.
So how do you do that with your military career? You just put in for the days
So
off?
I typically work from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So I got the mornings open. So I'll do that.
3 p.m.
But
to
I-
11 p.m.
Yes, sir. It's called a swing shift.
And then you're off at 11, and what, you just book it out to Lubbock?
Yes, sir. So I guide. So I run their hunts for their New Mexico operation. So I kind of have this deal here in New Mexico. I call it Clovis Point Hunting Club. I lease about 10,000 acres for mule deer, antelope, ducks, geese. And so they book for me, and I guide on the land that I've leased.
I got you. So you're not making a road trip to Lubbock at 11 o'clock at night.
Sometimes I do, but for the most part, I like to stay about 10, 15 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to pull
Now,
off.
I've got a question. Do you shoot any cinnamon teal out there where you are? Are you still too far east?
Oh no, we kill. So not necessarily where I'm at, but if we go down and hunt in Roswell on Bitter Lake National Wildlife Refuge, it is not uncommon at all to shoot cinnamon teal. Or if you go hunt like Lake Sumner, which is northwest of Clovis, it's not uncommon at all to shoot cinnamon teal.
Yeah, that's where Fort Sumner is, right? That's where
Yes,
Billy
sir.
the Kid's buried, right?
No, Hyco.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, he's buried in Fort Sumner.
Hyco, Texas, Jeff.
Oh, fuck. Hyco, Texas, wasn't where he's born at.
Buried. I didn't say born.
Buried. He's not buried there. He's in New. Everybody knows he's born.
He
buried
got
in New
away
Mexico.
from that dickhead
Yeah.
and moved to Hyco, Texas, and died an old man.
Why the fuck would anybody move to Hyco, Texas?
Exactly, Jeff. If you're the fucking #1 outlaw in America, where are you going to go?
Stay in Fort Sumner, New Mexico.
No, you're going to go to fucking Hyco.
So
where nobody knows you.
Andy's not real bright. He graduated from Texas Tech, so you can't got to give him a little bit of slack with honors. And when you see him do math, you'll know that that's not a very good, strong honor program there. So
I'm not a fucking math whiz, Jeff. I
we
never
all know
have
that.
been.
So
I own it at least. At least I don't fucking pretend that I'm not. I'm terrible at math. I'll be the first to tell you.
anyways,
I got confused whenever I was fucking tallying up the score sheet at putt-putt. I had to do it a couple times.
and he's not a putt-putt player either. So when you were, what's the refuge south of Albuquerque? Is it El Socorro or something? What?
I think it's Boston.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
No, Apache. I'm not sure. I don't typically venture that far west to
It's
duck
got an
hunt.
Indian name to it.
I think it's Bosca del Apache. I'm not sure. I might have to fact check me on that one, but that's a cool place. I've driven out there before in the summertime, and it's a neat area, but I've never gotten out there to do much
They
hunting.
shoot a bunch of sandhills there, and I think they shoot a bunch of
Snow geese.
it's snows, sandhill cranes, and they kill a lot of cinnamon teal out there.
Yes. So there's two zones in New Mexico for sandhill cranes. So the eastern zone, which we're in, is just kind of a free for all. It's a lot like Texas. And then in the western zone of New Mexico, so that area down near Albuquerque, you actually have to put in for a draw. So if you don't get drawn, then you get shit out of luck. You don't get to kill any cranes.
When we were going snow skiing, I realized how many snow geese were in fucking northern New Mexico. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I can't remember what town we were going through, but it was just, they were going back. It was a mild day. Insane.
You should play around Clovis.
Insane.
We we have a great conservation season out here for a couple weeks. It doesn't last very long, but we kill a lot of snow geese right out here in Clovis. And then if you go just over the border into Texas around the Muleshoe area, tons and tons, because there's a wildlife refuge down there and you can't hunt it. But they bounce around to those farm fields out there, and you can do very, very well if you have an
When I was a kid, 40 years ago, that was the place to go shoot a sandhill crane, was to go to Muleshoe. They were real famous for it. And I mean, the crane population has boomed in the last 15 years. I don't know what the numbers would be on them, and I may be way off on that, but it seems to be that way. It's becoming a very popular hunting bird now.
Well, it's just so unique because you only get them in really one area. I mean, obviously they got to get down here, so they're flying over other states. But Lubbock, Texas, Muleshoe, like this area of Texas, New Mexico, I mean, this is kind of where this is the end of the line for a lot of cranes. And so it's just such a unique bird.
And they don't change their flight much because we kill a lot of cranes here, but we got 3 unique areas that we go, and one of them just happens to be right here within a mile of the lodge. Behind the lodge, we shoot a bunch of cranes. But when I was a kid growing up, we had areas that held a bunch of cranes that don't have them now, but that area out there has always held birds. Like you said, from Big Spring to Lubbock to Clovis, that little area right there holds a bunch of cranes. And if you drive out there like tornado chasing, you look around, you thought there ain't no way in hell anybody shooting any waterfowl out here. It's a desolate area, but nobody crane hunted up until 15, 20 years ago. Very few people hunted cranes like they do now. There damn sure wasn't outfitters that specialize in them like they do now.
Sure, the guys that I work with and work for out of Lubbock, I mean, that's their bread and butter. They're crane hunters through and through, and been out there on a couple hunts with them, and it's neat. But yeah, I don't know. They get kind of a boring bird, but they're a lot of fun if you've never experienced.
That's what Andy says. Andy hates guiding crane hunts.
Fucking hate it.
You're either the man or you're an idiot. One of the two.
And most of the time, I'm an idiot. Well, I shouldn't say that, but if they're on, they're on. And it's going to be an easy morning. But if they're off, and, the field's out here, I don't know if you've ever been to our area, and I'm sure that it's kind of similar, but where you are, but our fields are just so massive where these birds are feeding. And if you're off the flight line a couple 100 yards, good fucking luck to you, buddy. Like, you better have a lot of jokes in your back pocket because there's going to be some pissed off people in your blind. And it's just
my wife actually has a lot of family. We do a family reunion down there in Haskell every year, so I'm kind of familiar with that area y'all are in.
Who's your family in Haskell?
Their last name they're the Carters.
There's a bunch of Carters.
There's a bunch of Carters in this area. I don't know who they would be.
I'm not. I've been a couple times. I just married into them. I'm not. I only met a few of them, but we can go family reunion.
He sounds really excited about being part of the Carter clan, doesn't he?
So she's from New Mexico originally, and she's got family in Haskell, right? Is that what you said?
So her family is from northern New Mexico, up in Farmington. Her parents live in Dallas area, Plano, but her mom grew up in Farmington, and she was actually born in El Paso. So a little bit of connection to New Mexico.
Are you confused by all that? Because I don't know where Haskell come into that. We went Farmington, El Paso, Houston, Dallas, and we never went to touch Haskell there.
Is y'all met at Sam Houston?
No, she went to A&M. We actually met on Tinder, so a successful Tinder story. But she went to A&M. I went to Sam Houston, about 45 minutes
One
down
of the
road,
rare ones that works out.
Do y'all have children?
So works out great.
Do y'all have kids?
No kids.
Later down the road, 15 years from now, your kid's going to ask, and hopefully it's a son and not a daughter, and she's going to say, Dad, how did you and Mom meet? Well, on Tinder. Well, what's Tinder? What's a hookup site?
Right.
So were you just like aggressively swiping right on everything, or did you we'll put it, I know Tinder is off of your phone now.
His wife's going to listen to this, so he's going to lie to us regardless.
I'm going to tell the truth because the truth is better than a lie. She super liked me.
So
there you
okay.
go. So she super liked me, and then the rest is history.
Well, congratulations. That's it's nice whenever these things work out. Poor Blake, he was just an aggressive swiper, and he'd call him on the second round, but
that's good. That's a fair strategy.
He swiped right on everything, and then when it was a match, that's when he did the calling. Now Tinder is off of his phone also. He's off the market, ladies. Sorry. Missed your shot.
So I'm on this Tinder shit. Do you field hunt ducks out in New Mexico or all water hunt?
Oh no, most of probably 80% of what we do is field hunts. We have fantastic field widgeon hunts.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So I mean, it's like you're talking from early November to the very end of the season. So we run from we kind of straddle that north-south zone. So the north zone opens early October, usually the second weekend, and we run all the way till January 31st with no splits.
Wow.
And so from like early November to the very end of the season, I mean, just clouds and clouds of widgeon.
I wonder if that's where our widgeon went, Jeff.
I don't know.
We did not see many widgeon.
Our last 2 years, our widgeon numbers have been off. I think the duck numbers are way off because we just haven't had them. But I think there's certain places like around Amarillo and y'all and some places in Kansas where the birds have just stopped. Mm-hmm. There's been no weather to push them. There's no snow.
Sure.
And y'all are the benefactor of that. And
oh, absolutely. So like a couple of years ago when we discovered these field, because we had been hunting playas, shooting mallards, pintails on these ponds. And me and my main hunting partner, we were out hunting and taking the truck back. The sun is just peeking over, and we look at our decoys. I mean, it's just this black cloud, and that's when we discovered the widgeon. And then from there, we were just running. We were just killing the shit out of widgeon. It's a lot of fun.
They're so fucking easy.
How many decoys are y'all running? 5, 10 dozen?
Oh no, so it's weird. So sometimes the geese, so we'll get these big clouds of lessers, and we kill a lot of honkers too. But the lessers, typically, you're wanting to throw out like 70, 80 dozen for these lessers. It doesn't work out here. You'll set up 70, 80. We have 100, but we rarely run 100 dive bomb silos, so not full bodies. But we rarely run that much. And so when we were running at these lessers, they kind of circle and they just peel off. And we're like, what? What's going on? And we're like, well, then we got a little bit lazy. We didn't want to haul all the decoys out. And so we started throwing like 10 to 15 out, and those lessers just ate it up. So got a lot of decoys that we don't use on a daily basis.
So y'all are running smaller spreads and killing the geese instead of running the big spreads.
I've killed more lessers and honkers off running 18 full bodies than throwing out 100 dozen silos.
Yeah. People are gonna have to be smart about this because we're at about
Crossroads.
5 years of big spreads and stuff like that. So
Sure.
I think paring back is probably going to be the next thing, because I think a couple years ago, I think it was get as big as you can.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people saw success with that, but
Sure.
they get hammered over the same, 75 to 100 dozen decoys, and then they start realizing that that's kind of the magic number. So you're either gonna have to throw out 200 for these little bastards, or like
Right.
you said,
Your dog
down.
dog is wanting something bad behind you.
Just
What kind of
attention.
dog is that?
There's a
That's what I thought
bloodhound
that was. Those are cool dogs.
Just an attention whore.
named Leroy.
That's
What-
Leroy.
What's he weigh?
About 110.
My dad brung a damn bloodhound down. A friend of his gave him a bloodhound, and he showed
Oh,
up
yeah.
with it. And I'm like, "What the hell are you gonna do with that?" He goes, "I don't know," but he said, "I sure like that dog." And he weighed 120 pounds, big old dog. I go, "What are you gonna do?" He said, "I got a guy in town that's got one, and he wanted to breed it. So somebody asked me if I wanted it, so I went and got it. And it was a cool ass dog, but they're big ass dogs too."
They're cool dogs. They're kind of worthless. I tried to train him how to rabbit hunt, and he's just so on the scent. We're running through this ditch. Oh, it's big. I say a ditch. It's like 30 feet deep. We're running through, and he's got his head down, and there's rabbits just busting everywhere, and he's not even looking at him. He's so focused on a scent. But he's a cool dog, just pretty worthless.
When did you get him? How old is he? How old
What's
is
that? He's 2, so he's a pretty young pup.
he? I don't. But do.
$100 off Craigslist.
Oh, really?
What made you decide to want a bloodhound though?
I just always liked hounds. I had a basset hound when I was a kid, and I had a basset hound black lab mix too that we had on our ranch for a long time, and I just like the hound look.
We had a basset hound for a long time. How long did those fuckers live?
He lived too long. He lived about 8 or 9 years.
Ugh. I tell you what, they slobber and those ears get in the bowl, and you gotta love those little shits.
Yeah, my wife is not a dog person, so I had to wait for her to go out of town before I went and bought him. She was on a trip with her dad going to Iceland, and I called her, man, they got these bloodhounds. I really want one. She's like, no, I don't want that. I was like, okay, well, just think about it. She's like, I just thought about it. No. I'm like, all right, well, just think about it. And she's like, you know what? Just go get it. So,
Hey,
tell me
did you already
twice.
buy it before then, or did you really was getting her permission?
Well, I told the guy to hold him for me. So
that's
halfway
a
at
hard
it.
dog for a non-dog person to want to have in the house.
Well, she likes dogs. She likes little dogs. So she's not a big dog person. That'd be a fair statement. So yeah, it's been an adjustment, but he's a good dog. Just he's still young, and they stay in their puppy stage for almost 2 years. So he's kind of in the final throes of his puppyhood.
I've got a 9-year-old black lab, and that fucker's still in the puppy phase.
We've been out of town, and the dog almost got evicted for trying to hump the lady at the boarding place.
He did.
Seriously.
Yeah.
9 years old.
Really?
9 years old. The poor lady. She's a sweetheart of a lady. And my wife texted to see how the dogs were doing, because Ollie, Jeff's dog, was also at the same place. She said, Ollie's doing good, but Lou's a pervert. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. She said, I was bending over cleaning out his pen, and he put his hooks into me and tried to hump me. I thought, fuck. Yeah. So, like, she's the only game in town. Like, if he gets kicked out of this place, he's got nowhere else to go. So, luckily, she took it in good stride. But she, like, had a water hose with her the rest of the time. And if he tried to do anything, she'd just squirt him. Or I told her just beat him. I mean, that's what we do at the house, and I'm fine with it.
Let's go back to shooting the small geese. So you're running smaller spreads. 30 years ago, when I first started, we were running, if you had 10 dozen silhouettes, that was a big spread back then. I'd run 10 dozen silhouettes and maybe 5 dozen shells. And that was 15 dozen was a big spread. And nobody had more than that. Right. I don't know anybody that had more than 10 or 20 dozen real geese silhouettes back in the day.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the mojo phenomenon, where when the mojos, the spinning wings first came out, ducks couldn't resist. And now you throw out a spinning wing, and I mean, except for the widgeon, they're not really looking twice at it, and it's just they're adjusting, they're getting smarter, and they see these things. And I think that these big massive spreads are kind of following suit with that, where that they're not going to look twice at it. They're like, oh. They're just going to laugh at you, and they're going to keep flying and go find their own.
Birds are very adaptive. I mean, especially waterfowl. And I'm wondering if widgeons, the reason that they react so well to the spinners is kind of like dove. A dove, the lifespan of a dove is only like 18 months. So dove decoy real good. They don't ever get decoy shy. And I don't know if there's so few people shooting widgeons over decoys that they do it, or if a widgeon's lifespan is not as much as a mallard is. Because you shoot mallards, there's some 15-year-old mallards, 25-year-old mallards flying around.
Sure.
This says the maximum recorded lifespan of a widgeon is 21 years old. However, most do not live that long. The average lifespan for a female is 1.7 years.
That's why
male is 2.3.
That's why widgeons decoy so well, because they don't ever get decoy shy. And a mallard is good lifespan. I bet you is going to be somewhere close to 10 years.
Sure. Same thing with mature snow geese. They're tough to kill.
Are 30 years old.
10 years is the average life expectancy of
a mallard.
Yeah. According to worldlifeexpectancy.com. So if you got a problem with that number, take it up with them, not me.
So your first day is getting into waterfowl hunting in Clovis, New Mexico. You get there and you're on the base. First of all, you come out there, you're a deer hunter, you said. Did you grow up as a waterfowl hunter also?
Yeah, so we were always on private clubs, or we hunted in the marshland back in South Texas, and it's just tough hunting. You're not killing a whole.
What is he doing?
There's something on that deer horn he wants.
He wants to chew on those antlers. I'm gonna stick.
No, he's fine. He's fine. I mean, he's not bothering us.
Okay.
I think it's funny.
But so yeah, down in South Texas, you're not killing a whole lot of birds till the late season, just because it's it's kind of the end of the flyway. And but when I get out here, I got out here in May, so I didn't get out here in the during the waterfowl season. Didn't really have a whole lot to do. Did a little bit of fishing, but sorry, he's distracting me. But yeah, I came out here as a deer hunter. Did some duck hunting as a kid, but we discovered. So the first year I was out here, I got married. So we got married in October, and then went on our honeymoon. So I was pretty much absent for that season. Killed a few ducks here and there, but going into the summer, going into the off season, me and my buddies like, we gotta get this figured out. There's a lot of birds out here and there's not a lot of hunters, so it's right for the taking. So ended up buying our dive bomb spread. Next year we killed. We did pretty well, did real well, and a lot of people were complaining about their bad seasons, and we avoided a bad season. So I was pretty proud of that.
Now, what's the main field that you guys are hunting in?
So I have a close friend who's a local farmer, grew up here. And so we hunt. So there's a central roost. And so it's all the fields surrounding this roost. And so we just kind of rotate whatever they're in that day.
But what's the agriculture? What's in the field?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Winter wheat.
Winter wheat is the main thing.
And there are a couple Milo fields that we hunt.
He wants some attention is what he wants.
That's a cool ass dog right there.
He was pawing at you. He's wanting some loving from Daddy.
He wants attention. I've been gone all day. So.
Oh, okay. So this is y'all's time that we're
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What do you do? Do you like run with him or I would say throw balls?
Yeah, I take him out running. So I have a little skateboard and I just let him pull me on skateboard.
Oh, really?
He loves it. Yeah, wears them out.
Oh, the PETA people are going to have a fit when they hear this shit. Air Force guy using a dog. Yeah, you'll be in trouble for that.
Nah, you'll be all right.
That's pretty unlike PETA to throw a fit, so we'll see.
Yeah, they never do that, do they?
I'm assuming you don't live on base now, right?
No, I live off base. Thank you.
Yeah, because I've driven by that, and it's bad.
So when you were on base, how hard was it to be able to hunt and have guns and stuff? Do you have to go put them in a stockade or something?
So I've never lived on base. But if you live on base in the base housing, I'm pretty sure you can keep your guns in a safe at home. But if you live in the dorms, you're a single airman, you're not married yet, you have to go turn it into security forces, and they keep your guns for you in an armory.
I wonder what happens when you want to go hunting at 3:30 in the morning. Is there somebody that's going to let you check out your gun?
Well, I have no idea. My buddies leave their shotguns here, so they don't have to deal with that. And ammo's been known to go missing when you go try to retrieve your ammo.
See there, from these fucking.
Maybe that's the bad rap you were talking about, MPs with stealing people's ammo.
That's what it is right there.
Especially
it's just
shorted.
The pieces are coming together. More and more we talk.
Are you shooting boss ammo yet?
No, I never have.
It's the greatest stuff in the world.
Those poor widge.
I'll have to try that. I shoot Kins.
The old Kent.
They do.
So it's mainly winter wheat out there, and you said some Milo. So that's any time that we've shot a shitload of widgeon, it was in a wheat field. Oh
yeah, they just can't get enough of it. You'll see them out there. By the thousands. They just can't get enough of that wheat. Ooh. So, but this year so my buddy who's the farmer, he's kind of building habitats for us. So he's getting more into the no-till farming, a little bit more ethical land use, and just destroying that topsoil. So we're actually planting corn, Milo. We have triticale and winter wheat, and we're going to flood the corn.
And what do you call it, triticale?
Triticale is a hybrid between wheat and rye.
Never have ever heard of it until 2 years ago, and now I see it all the time, people talking about it. Nebraska, sure. Blake and them farm it.
That's what they do.
Yeah, and I saw somebody cutting some at Haskell. Peter McKay and them were cutting some at Frederick the other day. I'd never even heard of that until 2 years ago, and now I see it all the time. And y'all grow it in New Mexico. And its season's the same as wheat. You plant it in September, October, and you harvest it in May.
Sure.
Does it cut big bushels, or is it higher than wheat or lower than wheat?
It's definitely higher than wheat. It's got I'm not a farmer. My partner does all that, but I go out there and check it out. It is definitely higher than wheat.
And all these fields are right around the roost, you said?
Yeah, there's kind of this central roost without kind of giving away exactly where it is. But south of town, yeah. So it's this one family that I'm close with. They kind of own all the quality waterfowl spots in the region. So I kind of lucked out with that.
Make sure you don't piss them off.
Right.
That's similar to the way it is out here. There's a handful of roosts.
Sure.
Scouting is very easy. We're not having to, just murder your tires and shocks going down dirt roads like we pretty well know. They're going to get up this way. They're going to fly northeast, south, or west, and we're going to make a game plan from there.
It's completely different than it is at Lubbock scouting.
Yeah. Oh, you're putting on the miles in Lubbock, and you're talking to a lot of people. I mean, you're wearing vehicles out in Lubbock, and I don't really want any part of that. We got it pretty easy out here.
Now,
so.
There's not a lot of local waterfowl hunters in Clovis, New Mexico either, is there?
So there's not a big waterfowl culture in New Mexico to begin with. I mean, we'll go down and we'll hunt public land, and you'll see this lack of waterfowl culture in the etiquette that people display. I mean, people might go out, oh, it's opening weekend, let's go out there. I mean, they'll be sitting in lawn chairs on a levee with 3 decoys up. I mean, I grew up in South Texas hunting public land. You know, people are, they're pretty respectful. They give you your space. Not in New Mexico. We had a guy set up probably, I'm not kidding you, 30 yards from us. And I'm like, we're standing right here. And he's like, I mean, verbatim, he's like, I'm sitting here. I'm not moving. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'm like, I'm not going to fight you at 4 o'clock in the morning. I need to be throwing my decoys out. So yeah, that's the current state of New Mexico plan. But go more west, Rio Grande Valley, there's some areas that spread out too. So that was just my experience in Roswell.
And I don't think of Roswell as being a waterfowl mecca either. I don't ever think of New Mexico as a waterfowl. I've known some guys that hunt with me that hunt south of Albuquerque on that, whatever the hell that place is. And but other than that, I don't think of New Mexico. Now, when I've been out there skiing stuff, I've seen cranes and ducks and geese, but it makes sense. There's an imaginary line that separates Texas and New Mexico, and that area from Hereford to Lubbock is a hot area, and it's right there where y'all are at. So.
Absolutely. I mean, and that plays well in our favor. You know, there's a world-renowned waterfowl area. You have Amarillo, you have Lubbock, and then to the north you have Colorado. I mean, these are big waterfowl areas. So we kind of live in this dead zone of, people don't come here, and they don't need to. You know, there's these other places that are just so good, and so it's not like they need to venture here to find the birds. It's just I just kind of got lucky and found this place. And it's just kind of a diamond in the rough.
Now, do you think all the pressure from the Panhandle has pushed some birds to you, or do you think that this was always sort of a hidden gem?
Probably a little bit of both, because I mean, there's a ton of pressure. There's probably 8, 9, 10 guides in Lubbock, and they pound those birds hard. And so to think that they're not having any effect in pushing these birds west, I think that'd be a little silly, but I mean, there's always birds out here. I feel like they've always been here.
How many?
I've only been out here for the last 4 years. So
how many outfitters did you say in Lubbock?
I'd probably say upwards of 10.
Yeah,
there's quite a few.
I'll bet it's 20 to 30. I would guess.
Is that many?
It might be. I'm just aware of.
I heard 2 guys the other day. A guy called me and was starting there and wanted to pick my brain for a little bit, and I never heard of him. And he said, yeah. And he said, I know another guy that's starting out there. I thought, geez, how many of you guys are going to be?
Well, it's all the crane. These people come from all over the country. They want to hunt these cranes because they don't get them anywhere else. So, yeah.
I'm trying to look it up.
Are you looking up outfitters in Lubbock?
Yeah.
You're going to have to scroll down a bunch. There's a shitload of them.
I'm up to 6 right now. 6 that I've heard of.
So, yeah. So the beautiful thing about New Mexico is it's not like Texas. You can't just declare yourself an outfitter and you're good to go. So there's really only 2 ways to become an outfitter or to guide hunts, is to either act as a landowner agent, which is what I do. I work on behalf of the landowner. They book through the landowner. And so, or you have to be a guide with an established outfitter for 3 years before you can apply to be your own outfitter. And so these guys from Texas, they just can't come out here and be like, oh, I'm gonna go knock on this guy's door and go hunt this field. Like, they can't do it. It's illegal. And so it kind of puts us in a position where we kind of have free reign of the region. And these guys from Texas, these guys from Oklahoma or Colorado, they just flat out don't have the option to come here. So it puts us in a really good position.
So
kind of like the North Dakota rules.
You said you have to act as an agent for the landowner, and then they have to book through the landowner. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So the landowner gets the call from the individual, and then they put them on the books?
Yes, they put them on the books. the other option is, I guess there's three ways, or if you own a certain amount of land that is worth, I think it's over $50,000, you can apply for your outfitter's license just because you own that land. And so, next year we're going to take that route, get registered as an official outfitter instead of just going the landowner route. But yeah, it's a weird system, and it's kind of doesn't allow for people to just get a wild hair and start an outfit like the guy that called you and like, oh, I'm just going to start an outfit in Lubbock. Like you just can't do that out here.
Now, in New Mexico, most of their laws are established because of big game stuff, I'm sure also.
Yeah, and just the sheer amount of public land that's out here. So yeah, a lot of it is geared towards elk, mule deer, antelope, like that. So and we have the draw system unlike Texas, so that's what that is a result of.
Now from Clovis, where's the nearest where you're going to get into elk and stuff? Is it around Wagon Wheel or Wagon Mound or whatever that place is called? Roy, New Mexico, that area.
Roy, I think Roy is north of us near Springer, yes, but I would have to look at a map. But I know that there's a very healthy elk population down in Lincoln National Forest, Cloudcroft, what's that other, Ruidoso area. That's a big, fantastic turkey hunting too, but a lot of elk, a lot of mule deer and turkey. And that's kind of, I guess, where the big elk population starts. But we're starting to have a move. So Clovis sits atop the Cap Rock, and we're starting to get some elk moving into the Cap Rock, which is putting Fish and Game in a weird position because there's no elk season in this unit. So we're unit 40, there's 39, 40, and 32, and we're starting to get elk moving in there. I don't know how to manage it because there's no established elk season. So I guess feasibly right now you could go out and shoot an elk during open hunting season, and Fish and Game couldn't do anything to you if you own the land and you have a tag.
Right. That was what I was going to ask, because that's how it is out here. There's no season, and it's just it's open season basically. If there is no season,
right? I
think Jeff's about to knock some shit over. But so is there a draw for waterfowl hunting also, or is it just big game where there's a draw?
So there's a draw for all big game, quality turkey, and Western zone crane. I don't know if it's AB or East-West zone, but there is, when you basically get past Fort Sumner, that's where the other crane zone starts, and you do have to draw for that.
Now
but everything else is just kind of fair game. But you buy a small game license and your waterfowl stamp, and you're good to go.
Now, what does it mean for a quality turkey?
Certain areas, so like Via Caldera, just like whether it's state land or certain federal lands,
you have to
that they designate as quality turkey. I don't know how they rate that,
you
but
have to put in for a draw to hunt that.
Yeah.
Now, is it all Merriam's up there?
So we have Rio Grande in Fort Sumner area. Really good. It's tough. It's very tough to go in there and get permission because the state released these birds in there about 10 years ago, and the landowners, they feel like they own these birds. So, but it's tough to get in on the Rios in Fort Sumner. But if you do go down to like Lincoln, or if you go up north towards Santa Fe to Cibola National Forest, it's all Merriam's.
So is there a region in New Mexico where Rios and Merriam's are coming together and creating like this weird hybrid? Because we're seeing that in Nebraska. It's getting harder and harder for some of these places to shoot. Like you can't go to Blake's and shoot a true Merriam because they're kind of in a place where the two have merged. So is it getting to be like that in New Mexico?
Yeah, absolutely. So Quay County, which is just north of Curry County where Clovis is, there is a population of Merriam-Rio hybrids, and that's because of releasing by the state. So it's kind of the government shooting themselves in the foot by doing these release programs, and then they mix in with these native Merriams, and then they're just kind of this weird hybrid. We actually shot a couple turkey in Fort Sumner this past season that I think were a hybridization of the two.
What did they look like? What made you think that they were a hybrid?
They had a real white base. So, you get the thin white line on the Rios, but the ones that we shot, they were white almost all the way up the fan, and it just didn't look like a normal Rio to me.
That's beautiful. Sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah.
Did you get it? Did you do anything with it? Did you get it mounted or the fan on your wall?
It was actually a buddy of mine that shot it. Yeah, he's got the fans curing right now, but it's definitely a cool looking fan.
Did y'all have a good turkey season? Ours was wonky, but it was a lot of weather.
So Fort Sumner is it's incredible. It's an incredible spot to hunt turkey. There's lots of birds. Opening morning, 3 guys went out, 3 guys doubled up. I mean, on the same stand. So, I mean, it's just not much of a hunt. But, so we had a great turkey season. Then we ended up going down to Lincoln National Forest, and I took some first-time hunters out. And we were on birds every single hunt. It's just so thick. You know, if we could have seen the birds, we could have shot them. That's how close they were, and then they just shut off. I don't know if they saw people moving. I don't know what it was, but we got skunked on that. But on the Rios, we had a really great season.
Now, are Merriams tougher to trick in your experience with Rios and Merriams?
No, the challenge is the terrain, because you're up and down. You're in the national forest. It's very much the physical exertion of an elk hunt, but you're trying to shoot a turkey. Right. So the birds aren't necessarily any more wary, maybe a little bit because it is public land, but it's the terrain that'll get you if you're not in good shape.
So what do you do? Do you do anything? I mean, I know you're in the military, but how do you stay in shape for this?
I mean, I work out with my wife 5 days a week, so it's just a lifestyle that I live. So
how long? Is it hard to get used to the elevation whenever you go to some of these places?
Sure. So in Clovis, we're at about 4,700 feet. I grew up 7 feet below sea level. So when I got out here, I was huffing and puffing. When I went up to, when I first moved here and went to Santa Fe, I'm laying in the hotel bed trying to sleep, and I'm gasping for air. So it definitely was an adjustment. But sure, when we go up to Cloudcroft, this first 2 days, I was like, this sucks. And we're going, we're trying to kill these birds, and I'm walking 8 miles a day up and down. But by the third day, you kind of adjust to it, especially since you're kind of already at a little bit of altitude here in Clovis.
Where do your hunters come from? Do they come from like sea dwelling places, kind of like you did?
So those guys we just kind of took out as just to get out. It wasn't like a guided hunt or anything, and they lived in Carlsbad, so they just kind of met us over there and kind of low desert.
We were the place that we stayed at when we were snow skiing, we stayed next to the sheriff of Red River, and he's like, yeah, like your body is acclimating for like 3 to 5 days. And he said many people come from Houston or Dallas or wherever, and they get on these ski runs, and like their body is not ready for it. He's like, we get so many heart attacks here because these schlubs they get off the couch, they start skiing, and they're at altitude, and they don't realize that their body hadn't adjusted right. And he's like, we get more heart attacks than anything up here. And I didn't realize it, because my father-in-law, he was talking about how out of breath he was, and he's got some heart issues, but the guy's like, yeah, like we get heart attacks all the time. So I didn't know how it was. You're like you said, though, you're kind of at an elevation and you're not going up a bunch. But I wonder, though, like a lot of guys that do a bunch of big game hunts, they're getting clientele from all over California. And I wonder if they recommend like their clients do any sort of something physical before they get them out on the mountain.
Right. And I would hope that, if you're signing up for an elk hunt in Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, you're at a certain level of fitness where you can kind of adjust over that 3 to 5 days. But, I don't know. I would certainly suggest that people coming to hunt with me in the mountains to be in some sort of physical shape.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm looking through like all the elk pictures in my mind, and I don't remember seeing a whole lot of fat asses posing with an elk. Maybe Tony. No. He's the only one I know of.
He was in shape back then, though.
So listen to this story. Tony, never been elk hunting before, has to take a shit and drops his drawers, letting the fudge fly, wipes his ass, looks up, and there's his elk just standing there looking at him. Good. Pulled up his rifle. Boom,
he was done in 10 minutes.
Taking a shit. I just can't believe it.
I guess that's taking a shit, I guess, is the elk hunting equivalent of standing in the decoys. They just come to you.
There you go.
So what do you like to do better? Do you like elk hunting or do you like waterfowl hunting more?
Oh, duck, waterfowl through and through.
Really?
No. Everybody's got their thing. Duck hunting is that's my thing. I can't get enough of it. elk, they kind of all look the same. I like the diversity of species in the waterfowl. And it's more of I like the social aspect of it. It's fun to go hunt. We have a ranch up in North New Mexico that we hunt, and it's a good time, but just a matter of perspective.
You're going to shoot one time. You're going to kill the same fucking animal over and over again. It may be bigger, but it's the same damn thing.
Sure. I like sitting in the blind. I like cooking breakfast while there's geese flying overhead. Guys that have never hunted before, they don't get to go, they don't get to go out as much as they'd like to. These geese are laying in decoys and I'm making breakfast tacos. That's what I live for. So, big game's cool. I do guide antelope. I do guide mule deer hunts, but I just live for waterfowl.
Today, Tony came in here and he's like, hey, come out here and look at the pond. We had a pair of Mexican tree ducks at his pond today.
Really?
Went down there and looked at them. And to me, that was cool because we don't see them very often. They're around here, but that's the first time I've seen a pair, and they're sitting in a pond up here, and I'm thinking, I hope they stay here all summer. I drive by a flock of Canada geese coming home from the airport yesterday. I 3 or 4 of them, and I still look and see, and I do the same thing every other waterfowl hunters. I wonder if they got any bands on them, and you look at their legs.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's exciting. I see a fucking deer in the corner over there. It's a damn deer. It just don't.
Right.
It don't. I'm the same as you. I don't. Big game hunting does not excite me.
Sure. And I grew up hunting West Texas. I grew up, my dad had a corporate deer lease for, 30 years. They just got off of it a few years ago. Actually, I've killed tons of whitetail, killed, axis, owldead, all kinds of exotics. And I'm not going to wake up every single day of the season at 4 a.m. and try to go shoot a deer or sit in a tree stand, but I'm getting up every single morning at 3:30, 4 a.m. to go sit in the duck blind every single time. It is just as exciting every single time I do it.
Being a waterfowl hunter is like being a sailor, a dirt car racer. It gets in their blood, and it's something about it. I don't know what it is, but I've been around hunters my whole life, and I've got a lot of guys here that they're on a deer lease and they come hunt here 1 or 2 weekends a year to waterfowl hunt.
Sure.
They love their deer hunting, but the duck hunting and goose hunting is something different. The call, the birds working the decoys, it's just something magical. Is that your is that your wife that came in?
Yeah, saw me wink at her. Yeah, she just came.
Well, I didn't know if it was the dog again or not.
Oh no. But
I want her to verify this Tinder story.
Yeah, she just walked out again. But yeah, it's just there's nothing like it, especially when we're doing our widgeon hunts. And these guys, just like you said, they might get out 1, 2, 3 times a year, and they're coming to us and they're going, they want us to put them on birds, and you have these clouds. You have these clouds of widgeon, 30, 40 at a time, just fully locked up, and then their eyes just light up. Their eyes light up, I take these guys out mule deer hunting, we'll shoot these big deer, and it's exciting, but the reactions you get from a great duck hunt don't compare to anything big game was, in my experience.
No, I agree, especially new hunters. What's bad is when you wear them out on a group of new guys, whether it's shooting ducks or geese or not, they think that's the norm.
Yeah.
Right. So it is. Yeah, exactly. So it can be a double-edged sword, but it's just the way it is. You got to put them on the birds. So.
But guys that big game hunt, there's no moving them. And maybe that's how it is with waterfowl hunting. I don't know. But you talk to them and they're just there's just no, I don't know. There's just no moving them off of their spot. Elk hunting is the best in their mind. And it's just
it's probably because they've never been on a good duck hunt before. That's my theory.
Motherfucker, if you would just listen to me and come on this hunt and quit, get out of your box a little bit.
Right.
But they're just the elk bugling 75 ridges over, and you got to make a move on them. And it's but it's one shot, and that's it. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the chess match of, pulling off the perfect shot, or I don't know what the fuck it is. I've never done it before. So
my last question for you: do y'all deer? Sure. You don't have to deal with any bears around Clovis, do you?
Oh no, I've never seen a bear in this area for sure.
Now you've hunted Roswell, you said.
Many times. That's a wild place to hunt on that public land. I have seen some pretty crazy shit going on.
Here you go, Andy. Go ahead and ask him.
Aliens? Is it alien? Is that what you're saying, or what have you seen?
Oh, well, no aliens, but I did see a group of guys laying to about 30 pelicans one morning. That was pretty wild.
Boy, that's an expensive fuck up.
Ooh.
Yeah, we were sitting in the blind looking up the fine. It's about $100,000 a bird. So
did they get caught?
I I think that they were so inexperienced, they didn't even know what they did. So like me and my buddy were sitting in our blind, and it's right at light, and so these birds get up, and they're far away, or I just couldn't tell. My depth perception was off just because it was so dark. I'm like, oh, I thought they were snow geese, for a brief moment, and I'm like, oh, they're pelicans. That's pretty cool. And they fly right over us, and they're flying right towards this other group, and I kind of nudge my buddy. I'm like, watch these idiots. They're going to shoot these things, joke. And there was probably 4 of them. And I see the guns go up, and I go, oh, my God. No. Don't do that. Boom, 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 boom. And they rain out like 4 or 5 pelicans. And I'm like, oh, my God. And they went out to their spread. They picked them up, and they came and they put them down next to them and sat there for the rest of the morning.
They probably ate them, too.
I don't know what they did with them, but that's a wild place, and some people do some crazy shit out there that you can't even imagine.
But the game wardens never busted them.
So it's a national wildlife refuge, Bitter Lake National Wildlife Refuge, and I have never once seen a conservation officer, game warden, fish and game. I've never seen anybody out there. Not once. And I've hunted down there probably 10 to 12 times last season alone.
I know a guy that hunted the Eastern Shore one time, and he told me that this guy come in, some redneck dude, and he's like, check out old Bill here. And old Bill comes in, this older guy in New York City, didn't know much fuck hunting, and he said, check out his biggest snow goose I've ever killed in my life. It's a fucking swan he had plucked. He said, looked like a butterball turkey.
We were sitting in the blind. I guess it was real late season, probably mid-January, and we're sitting there. We got our spread out. We had just killed all of our limits of geese, a few ducks, and we're sitting there, and I'm on the very far left end of the blind, and I'm looking, and I'm going, that's a big ass snow goose, and it's like 2 or 3 feet off the ground, and this big old tundra swan just landed right in our decoy. You can't shoot them in New Mexico, but man, it was cool. I'd never seen anything like that.
We just left Michigan, and them fuckers are everywhere.
Yeah, I'm going to South Dakota this year, and hoping I draw my a unit with waterfowl or duck and swan. So
I hope you draw a unit that's got water in it.
Is it that dry?
It's horrible. They said
gosh,
no corn. Yeah. They said no corn in lots of places. It's not even making corn.
I mean, it's been so wet up there for the last few years. Just thousands and thousands of acres of corn being flooded. I mean, I guess you're due for that. It's just a cycle. Yes. I guess you're due for a drought for a couple of years. I think, and I'm hoping that this year here in Clovis we're coming out of the drought.
So even with all the rain y'all are getting, y'all are still considered drought conditions?
Probably right now. If it keeps up the way it is, I would imagine we'd be coming out of that drought condition.
So your wet season's coming up in July and August. That's the monsoon season for y'all, isn't it?
Yeah. So last year, it didn't rain at all. Probably from August to about 6 weeks ago. It did from August 2 years ago up until about 6 weeks ago. Not a drop. So it's just been horrible.
Now your roost lake there, how does it have water in it? Is it something that they pump, or is it all?
Yeah, it's owned by the city. Okay. So it's a.
You don't have to go any further. I'm not trying to get your I'm just trying to figure out how you've had such.
Guaranteed.
These things are so hard to do because. You want to talk about things, but then at the same time, you want to respect, your area and stuff like that. And
sure. Yeah, I told my dad I was coming on this podcast. Oh, don't say too much. You're good, because he comes out every year and he just loves it. He's like, well, you're gonna have a bunch of people out there now, and I'm like, well, I lease it all, so it's not like they can just go knock on my buddies, So I feel relatively secure.
How far is Dora, New Mexico, from you?
Dora. I have no idea. I've never heard of Dora.
Somewhere close to y'all. They've had 9.2 inches of rain in the last 16 months. Now, if you want to go back even more than that, you could go 20 months, and they're back at about 11 inches in the last 20 months. And that's counting 3.5 inches in April.
Wow. Yeah, we had it rained for pretty good for about 2 weeks, and then we had another 2-week break, and now it's starting to rain again, and forecasted to keep going for at least the next week. So I'm pretty pumped about that, because when our plies fill up early season, it's just incredible.
Muleshoe had 10 inches of rain from November of 2019 up until May, they had 7, 8,
Yeah,
9.
so-
And then they've had 6 inches of rain in June. And that's it. They hadn't, up until that time, they hadn't had any rain. So it was a bad drought up there until the last 2 months for y'all. The last 6 weeks.
Oh, terrible. I mean, it was so bad that people, the farmers, they didn't want to pay to, they didn't want to pay for their sprinkler system, and a lot of these fields just turned into just gross dirt patches. I mean, people weren't even farming because it was just, you're not going to get a harvest. You're just going to be dealing with insurance companies. So, yeah. So I'm hoping that these rains will really kickstart the agricultural industry again out here, because they desperately need it.
Dora is south of Portales. I don't know how many miles.
Really?
So.
Yeah, there's actually a wildlife refuge south of Portales, and I think a lot of the cranes in the area go there, and that's why we don't see too many in Clovis. I can't remember what it's called, but it's just right there. So
anyways, it's pretty dry out there. Well, hey, I appreciate your service to our country.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. What's your plans for whenever you're done with the Air Force?
So I have a pretty successful big game operation in between Clovis and Fort Sumner, in an area called Melrose. I want to say Muleshoe, Melrose. And so I'm wanting to get out and just guide full time. And then my wife and I, we own real estate that we do short-term rentals on. So want to do invest a little bit more in real estate and then just guide full time.
So Melrose is by Taliban, isn't it?
Taliban.
It's called Taliban? It's spelled like Taliban, though.
Yes, sir.
Every time I drive by that, I laugh my ass off thinking about that.
Somebody got screwed over on the naming of town is what happened, and they're like, no, we're Taliban. We're Taliban.
Taliban looks like a miserable place to live.
Motherfucker, don't be bullshitting me. You're Taliban. You change that.
I think the only building in that town is a post office. I don't know if anybody lives there. I mean, it's a rundown. It's a shithole.
Yeah,
so.
it looks like one.
Would you live in Taliban if you had the option? I mean, I know you're in Clovis.
Big
but
deer. Massive deer back in those sand hills.
Well, very good, man. Well, listen, it's been a really good time talking to you, and we wish you the best. Thank you for your service. We wish you the best moving forward. We hope this season's great, and bring that dog back in the house. He was a lot of fun to watch. So good luck to you in the future, bud. And if there's anything we can ever do for you, let us know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Hey, God bless you and your family, bud. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Pronounce his last name.
Fuck.
You got it wrote down right there.
I don't have the pronunciation.
Mikulencak.
Mikulencak.
Collin Mikulencak.
Mikulencak. I'd have never. Mikulencak is what I.
Very interesting guy.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize they started shooting birds out there in the middle of October.
I had to go pee, so I think I missed that part.
Yeah, middle of October, they start shooting ducks out there and goes all the way through January. Very interesting guy serving our country. God bless him and his family. We appreciate everything he does for us. Thank y'all for listening to us. Have a great week. I guess this one's going to probably come out Thursday. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Y'all have a good weekend. Thank you, guys.
Check out all of those great sponsors that we've weaved throughout the years. Check out Pacific Calls. Get your world famous t-shirt. We will draw for that coming up at the end of the week. Gundog Outdoors, Dive Bomb Industries, Bangtail Whiskey, Goose Creek Retrievers, Boss Shot Shells, Dirty Duck Coffee, Lucky Duck, Looking Glass Duck Club, Eyesight Drone Service, Bangtail Whiskey, and Stanfield Hunting Outfit.